Choose to die well while you can. Wait too long, and it might become impossible to do so. Rufus. Cool. Alrighty. Well, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Full Metal Cast. Thank you, Brit, for joining the channel once again.
Third time's the charm.
Indeed. Well, second time was much better than the first time as far as recording quality goes. You can probably back up a little bit from the mic. No, you don't have to too far, but your voice just comes through so much more clear than mine.
What if I'm back here?
It still comes through great. Comes through great. Mine just echoes very well. Yours doesn't. It just kind of goes straight into the mic. It's has to do with lows and highs. And
what if we switch sides? Would it make a difference?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Because my voice is being projected very close to I don't know. Who knows? I don't think it matters at the end of the day. This place is just not insulated at all.
It is not.
But like always, we got to start with some warm-up questions. I'm very excited to throw these ones at you. So the first one, I didn't mean to punch the table there. That was not very good. I played it for you earlier in the car really quickly, and I mentioned a little bit about the history of it, but I don't think you've heard of it. So maybe your hot or not is going to be abstain. But Richmond, north of Richmond.
Oh, you played that yesterday. I don't think I was listening to it close because we were in the middle of that drive, and I was kind of paying attention to the cars. I think I'd have to hear it again.
Yeah, definitely. That's fair. Give it a listen and then let me know.
What's your opinion on it?
I think it's hot. I am not a country guy. I really do not enjoy country music.
It sounded more like the Chris Stapleton, that kind of.
It sort of has a similar vibe. I won't say any more, though. I want to share my opinion. I want to get your thoughts. And then whenever you come back or however you want to share your opinion, let me know what you think of it.
Okay.
And then, so this isn't really a hot or not, but do you prefer coffee or tea? And what is your favorite type?
I definitely prefer coffee. I'm a huge coffee person. But there are times of day when I do like tea. I feel like certain times of year I like tea, like in the fall and winter. And then I always drink tea before bed, like that sleepy time tea stuff is so good. But coffee for sure over tea.
Really? What's in the sleepy time tea?
Sleepy time tea is chamomile, that word that starts with a V that I was telling you about. It's supposed to cause bad dreams. Pull up what else in there. I don't remember.
I have to.
It's just supposed to help you. I don't know if it's so much helping you fall asleep. For me, it helps my mind not be as active when I am asleep. Because I have really vivid dreams. So I wake up most nights from bad dreams. And when I drink sleepy time tea, I don't know. It almost just helps me to mellow out when I'm actually asleep.
It just seems to be chamomile, spearmint, and lemongrass, and that seems to be it.
There's one other thing in it, that one that starts with V.
Ingredients? Sleepy time tea ingredients? Let's see. Oh, valerian?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. I've never heard of that. Herb native to Europe.
So a lot of people don't like this because it gives them bad dreams, and that's how do you say it? The valerian?
Valerian, yeah.
Valerian. Yeah. That
read
is
more about this herb native to Europe. Oh, page not found. That's awesome.
Yeah, that herb is known to induce really vivid dreaming.
Interesting.
But it really has the opposite effect for me.
Okay, all these pages
I know this
suck.
was not the question at all.
No. That's interesting because I take a different sleep cocktail recommended by Andrew Huberman, which is magnesium threonate, L-theanine, and apigenin. And L-theanine is known to cause very vivid dreams. And then when it's coupled with the magnesium and the apigenin, which so the magnesium, the theory is that it's supposed to help promote cognition. It's supposed to sort of help strengthen the connections and the synapses in the brain, allegedly. And then apigenin is just chamomile extract, essentially.
Oh, I didn't know
to
that.
sort of help you fall asleep. So in conjunction with those two, the Althenian is supposed to give you just like spirit quest level dreams. I haven't had crazy ones, but I can say that on average, since like whenever I do take it, the dreams are definitely more vivid. They're like more definitely stronger dreams.
Do you feel like it helps you sleep? Like, does it help
Hmm.
you fall asleep?
Very much so.
Do you take it every night?
For the
Do you
most part,
feel
whenever I can.
yeah.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel like it gets to a point where you've plateaued on it? Like, it doesn't work very well?
Not yet.
'Cause that happened to me, like, a year ago, I would take Sleepy Time tea, religiously, like,
Yeah.
I was taking it every single night, and it got to a point where it wasn't really that effective, like, it didn't help me fall asleep, it didn't help me stay asleep, so they have a version called Sleepy Time Extra,
Hmm.
and I had to start taking that one.
Okay.
So I'm curious if it's gonna happen this time again, but yeah, I feel like I plateaued on it.
Interesting. I
Yeah,
haven't
I
had
don't
that. I
know.
think humans said it's like non-habit forming in the
Mhm.
sense where like I don't know if you can build a tolerance to it almost.
Yeah.
But yeah, I felt like at one point I was reaching that when I was taking melatonin a lot in high
Oh,
school.
yeah.
I don't think I should have been taking it when I was in high school, honestly. Now that we're starting to understand um sort of like the side effects it has,
Mhm.
the impact it has on the body and how unregulated it is. But I did.
Melatonin messes me
Yeah,
up.
yeah. Yeah, it's not good for you, really. It's not good for prepubescent teens, I
Mhm.
believe. Just how it might screw with your hormone regulation at the time. But it did pass me out, but I whenever I woke up, I never felt like really well rested either.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Oh, the next day I always feel terrible.
yeah.
What was the actual question?
Coffee or tea, and what's your favorite?
Oh, just black coffee, but I love like a really good quality espresso
Mm,
and then do like a cortado or something, which
okay,
is shot of espresso and then an equal part of milk. So it's like
gotcha.
2 ounces milk, 2 ounces espresso.
Okay, I'm definitely
What's
a
your
coffee
favorite
person as
coffee?
well.
Yeah,
Oh, just black
black
coffee,
coffee. Yeah.
just
I
the
don't know why I even
blackest,
asked.
hottest coffee. Yep. I'll take a cold brew, like a nice coffee when it's like really hot out and like
Hmm.
I'm walking, but otherwise it's just
Black
regular,
coffee.
biggest, blackest coffee. Yep.
Hmm.
Which one do I want to do here? Okay,
Ooh,
what is one like trashy thing that you like your guilty pleasure?
probably reality TV. I don't watch a lot of it, but I have a few that I do really like.
Okay,
Hmm.
your shows.
Yeah. Well, I love Love Island. I think
Yeah,
everybody does
yep.
at this
I've
point.
been
That's fair.
exposed to the UK
Yeah.
version of it. It's pretty
Um,
hilarious.
it's so well, the UK version's the best.
Hmm.
The other ones honestly aren't really worth watching in my opinion.
I'd have to
UK
agree.
is the best. Um, I actually really like the Kardashians. I love
We're gonna
that show.
disagree on that one.
But here's the thing, the new, series that they have,
Hmm.
that they're all the, like, EPs of now, the filming style is so much better. It's really, like, personal and kinda documentary style, and it's not as, like, big drama production. Like, it's almost like documentaries of their day-to-day life, which is kinda cool.
Cool.
You don't have to like them, but that would be my guilty pleasure if
Okay.
I'm gonna watch reality TV. I'm watching that.
Understandable. Um, Not with you on that
You're
one, but
questioning
yeah.
everything right now, I
No,
can see it.
it's the Kardashian thing. I feel like people are kind of tired of them at this point, you know?
Shrug shoulders. I don't know. I think yeah, I can understand. I mean, they truly are on season, like, 20 something of the
It's just
show.
a lot
Like,
of
I
the
get
same
it.
people, and I think,
Yeah.
yeah, that's just me though.
Mhm.
I don't have much anymore, honestly.
Trashy things that you like
I
that
mean, obviously, I'll game with the boys every now and then,
mhm.
but also like, excuse me, um, I don't have a TV here really.
Yeah.
Um,
Ice.
oh, gotcha, yeah. That was about to, that's very relevant for my next question.
Mhm.
I can't think of what it might be. Cars, maybe. I don't know.
That's not
I
a
don't know.
trashy thing.
I'm reaching here.
Trashy thing is a yeah, I feel like that's, like, guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
Liking cars doesn't have to be a guilty pleasure.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I'll have to think about that one, get back.
You're just so well-rounded.
That's
You don't have
definitely
one.
not true. Well, I guess like guns, be considered
Yeah.
to some people who don't understand how I go about it, but
Mhm.
maybe that be it. Um, all right, now we're gonna really plug in here
Okay.
because you are the paranormal guest.
Oh, no.
Which So I'm gonna run through a list. I have about six-ish, yeah, of just like animals and whatnot, cryptids, etc. I want you to tell me if they're real or not
Okay.
and why.
Okay.
Bigfoot.
No.
Why don't you believe Bigfoot's real?
I think we've just done too much with Bigfoot.
How so?
It seems it's just so over exaggerated. I don't think that there's a Bigfoot.
You don't think there's a Bigfoot?
No.
Really?
Hmm.
Okay.
Now, I think that there are probably big creatures in
Mm-hmm.
like high up mountain regions that are very odd. But like the whole Dyatlov Pass story, that like Russian friend group?
Oh, yeah,
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 that
yeah.
one. Like something obviously Bigfoot like got them, but I don't believe in Bigfoot. I don't think he's real.
I feel like I remember hearing that, and it was confirmed it was actually like maybe the military that did it to him.
Oh, there are a lot of theory. Yeah, I think that's still pretty floating as to what
I'll have
happened.
to do some reading on that again. It's been a
Military's
while.
definitely like a number one suspect, but then there's some stuff that just is so weird, like the tongues just being ripped clean out
Mm,
that I think gave way to
interesting.
something like a cryptid being involved.
Like cartels do stuff like that though too.
Yeah, but there were no other, well, I mean, I guess who found them could say, "Oh, there are no
Yeah,
other footprints," but there were no signs of other humans that weren't
right.
the people at the camp.
Yeah. Hmm.
What's your
Okay.
take on Bigfoot?
A lot of these I with hmm. This is gonna sound like I've heard this excuse before and I've kind of thrown the BS flag on it, but I keep going back to it where a lot of things take place in the world, um, and someone is able to find footage of like a vacant the opposite thing happens. So for example, you see a news story
Mhm,
saying, X happened. It becomes like this huge thing. It's like as the established source found it, put it out there, said this is what happened, and then one person or one camera on a corner happened to catch, the one like little thing that completely unwinds, the
mhm,
entire story. That happens very frequently. There hasn't been a single thing with like most of this list, I feel like, that really fully is able to go against, like or really fully prove or establish proof that one like any of these things are real for me. So
mhm,
that's kind of where I stand where again, everyone's on their phones. Phone cameras are so good. There's so much data floating around. There's so many ways to capture data in the world now that like it's hard for me to believe and fully say like yes, I believe in these things without there being,
mhm.
anything really to point to like yes,
Well, that's
fully we've
with the
captured images, we've captured data.
yeah,
And there's also the question of like remains.
mhm. With the Bigfoot one too, if you're seeing a giant person-like thing, I mean, that's gonna be so well documented. Like, I think if Bigfoot was real, we'd have better
Hmm.
footage of it, like what you just said.
And then the one like the popular footage back from the day that was fake, they determined too.
And wouldn't Bigfoot, if this is a person-like being, start wandering into more populated areas?
You think?
Like, is he really just gonna stay in the mountains? I feel like we would have seen him.
That's a good point too, because like you see like bears
Uh-huh.
when they start growing overpopulated in a certain area, like, they do just wander the neighborhoods. They start like
Mhm.
picking through the garbage. They start doing things like that. That's a good point. I never thought of that, but yeah, no, that's a very valid
Mhm.
contributing factor to my stance on that, I think.
Yeah.
So then the other one is the dog man. More Native American version, I guess, if you will, of Bigfoot.
Okay, I think I know what Dogman is. You're gonna have to remind me or show me if there are pictures. Dogman is just like another like Bigfoot
So
type
like,
of.
yeah, very large wolf-like creature, like bipedal sometimes. I believe he was or it was the result of like a Native American curse.
See, this is gonna be like completely, I don't know, silly way of looking at it, but when something is really based in folklore
Hmm.
or like old myths or, you know, even like Greek mythology and then like Native American,
Yeah.
like old tribal stories, part of me wants to believe that stuff. because I think it's just so cool to have
It is cool.
that history behind something. That one I would be more inclined to believe
Mm,
that there could have been something like that at one
okay.
time. But I think with the washing out of like that history, maybe there's no Dogman currently, but maybe once upon a
And there
time.
are plenty of stories again, plenty
Mhm,
of stories, plenty of accounts. But again, there's not like that one thing that's like, boom, there it is. And like this example, I guess, could be used both ways. So, for example, like the ocean, most of it's unexplored,
mhm,
and we're finding new things every day. But still, like we're finding new things every day, and we are finding new things every day, like above the ocean, in our forest here. But also, like I don't know,
mhm.
like we willingly look for this stuff sometimes, and we can't find it. And I'm not saying we don't do that in the ocean, but I don't know. I just feel like nah, it just doesn't really line up.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people who yeah, I don't know. I'm not gonna go down that rabbit hole. I don't want to
I'm
piss
gonna
off the Bigfoot
spend my
crowd.
life,
I know how
yeah,
enthused
searching
they
for these
are.
things.
And listen, it'd be cool if they
Yeah,
were real. I would like them to be real. Like I don't not want them to exist. I think
mhm,
that's really cool. Um, I do think it's probably possible for these things to be out there, but personally, I just don't think they are,
mhm.
which sounds weird. But the next two, similar but different, also Native American things, Wendigos and Skinwalkers.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
Whoa. So I'm seeing the Native American heritage lends it credibility.
Yeah, and that's why I said this really has no backing other
Mhm.
than if it comes from something that's rooted in a bit more of like a folklore and a story
Yeah.
behind it, I'm more inclined to believe it.
Okay. So then, like,
Because those things, I
Paul
feel like,
Bunyan and shit, like, he was real.
no. I don't know where I draw the line.
So
I don't know
Paul,
where I draw the line.
the
But
giant with a big axe, was less believable than Wendigo, Skinwalkers, and the Dog Man.
yes, Paul Bunyan, I'm sure was real. I'm sure has been a Paul Bunyan-like character throughout history.
Okay.
You could be a Paul Bunyan-like character, like go walk around with a flannel and an axe.
Not that tall. So yeah, but Wendigos and Skinwalkers, simply because of the Native American connection.
I don't know. And don't get me wrong, I'm not like, yeah, I believe these things. I think I could find one,
Mhm.
but I could see a situation, I don't know, where maybe on the right drugs, you
There
think you see a
are
skinwalker
yeah,
in
the
a
right
Native
drugs,
American
yeah.
tribe.
Um, but there are stories from, especially so Tales from the Grid Square, I showed you that account
Mhm,
where a lot of it's all accounts from like military personnel
mhm,
who have like paranormal or like creepy experiences. And a lot of that stuff does happen, especially when it comes, with those two creatures on military bases and on military bases where there was like Native American
mhm.
like land. So like,
I just think there's so much spiritual history in that realm
mhm,
too. I don't it seems a little more possible to me than just, like, there's a tall human-like man that lives in the
yeah,
forest,
yeah,
because this isn't necessarily maybe that's where my distinction is, like, if it's just that there's this big human creature, I'm less likely to believe it because kind of, again, going back to what we were saying, like, I think they would be inclined to wander into society, whereas these more, like, spiritually folk-based
but when you
things,
look
I
at
don't
like
know.
some of like so Bigfoot and Dogman, they would obviously be they are like considering
Make
people
sure
are
it's
like looking for.
I'm gonna look up a skinwalker. Make sure this is what I'm thinking of.
You're not. It's not. They're not gonna be pleasant pictures. Um,
Not gonna sleep well tonight.
like Bigfoot and Dogman. So humans are already top of the food chain, right? If there is like a more primal version of that out in the woods that is able to basically kill and eat whatever it wants, whose dog is that?
Yeah, like this is horrifying,
Yeah, right.
but I do like I would put more credibility on this than I would on Bigfoot. And maybe it's because this isn't a fully human thing,
But if they're not,
but it's It's a harmful witch who has the ability to turn into, possess, or disguise themselves as an animal. Like,
Mm.
this is where things could get.
Or other people. Other people.
How am I even just sitting here trying to, like, give this credibility right now? But this is, I think, where I could believe it more and give it more credibility. Again, if we're gonna stick in, like, the Native American realm, just
Mhm.
because of all of the, like, magical realism that goes.
But then Dogman and Bigfoot. So Dogman's
Mhm.
Native American thing, but Bigfoot's essentially this like a similar sort of premise.
But this is, like, a being that has the ability to, like, possess and become something else. That to me is different than Bigfoot, which is just, like, its own thing, and he's just out there wandering around, yet somehow we've never been able to see him. Is that making
I'm
sense?
trying. So let me try to finish my thought about them wandering into society. So
Okay, okay.
them being the apex predators will not like they don't mess with people. Like they know not to mess with people. They understand that like we are a threat to them, and also
Mhm.
like they're the king of their like domain. Really, they're not gonna leave the forest, whatever. They're able to kill and eat whatever they want without any sort of pushback. Essentially, so they don't have a need really to come out of that. You know.
Okay.
Like gorillas and
Yeah,
monkeys, like they're not like for the most like chimps and whatnot. They're pretty content in the forest.
but they
They're not
still
just
get curious and will,
yeah,
like, come to at least look, you know? That's what I'm saying. I feel like we would have at least seen Bigfoot coming out to look. Not necessarily coming out to, like, hunt and kill and put himself in a vulnerable situation, but even monkeys get curious. Like, you see them if they're, like, humans moving into a forest, like, they'll stay
yeah.
hidden.
Humans moving into the forest. So it's not the gorillas coming out of the forest into the cities. I gotta stop kicking the table.
Gonna hit your knee. Yeah, I don't know. The skinwalkers and all of that, it's just a little bit more believable to me, I think, because it's not a fully human being, and it's based in, like,
Okay.
some element of, excuse me, beer's making me burp,
Mm,
um, of, like, paranormal, more like witchy rootings.
okay. So the next one is
You know?
UFOs and aliens.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Even
There's
after.
so much space. We are not the
That's
only.
fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. Do you think that they're visiting here though?
Yeah.
Really?
I think we're probably one of the most advanced societies in the whole realm of space. So if there are other
Do you
beings
think
out
that
there,
might be a little? I don't know.
a little what?
I feel like that's a lot to assume that we're the
In
most
our
advanced.
galaxy, I think we're probably, who knows what's happening in another galaxy, right? But in ours, we have no proof of a higher functioning
We're a very
society.
small like thing in the Milky Way. Like we are in a very, very tiny
But there has to be something
pocket.
about ours that would attract so much outside attention, right?
So
Which
you
leads me to
believe that
believe,
outside attention is real then?
yeah,
That's what I'm trying to get at. Okay.
yes, I do. Yeah, there's no way that we're alone. And I don't necessarily think that an alien is like a 7-foot green big
Yeah.
headed creature. Like, I don't think it needs to be that out there. But I would say there are definitely other
Okay.
life forms out there.
That's fair. I think I do too. I don't think everything we're seeing coming out of the government right now or in the news or a lot of reports is it very well like one or
Hmm.
two might be. A lot of the stuff is still unexplained. But I don't think I'd say 99.9% of it isn't actually aliens here. I do think out there, obviously, in the vastness of space, statistically, there has to be
Hmm.
things, out there that are living that are capable of traveling to different planets. I mean, we're able to go into space and take people
Hmm.
into space just for funsies. So, like, why not?
I think it's easy to not want to alarm people. So if some type of foreign aircraft that's maybe from
Hmm.
another country that
Yeah,
shouldn't be messing around here is spotted, to
that
be
makes
like,
sense.
oh, it's a
Hmm.
unidentified. object, right? Like, not claiming it as an
Which
alien,
technically
but
in that
they
point,
play it
maybe it
off.
is,
Yeah,
but
maybe
it's
it
that
is.
makes it everyone instantly goes to aliens when you say
Yeah.
unidentified flying object.
I
Yeah.
think that probably happens a lot. Like,
Hmm.
a lot of it probably is military based, and then it
Hmm.
gets written off as that. But I don't know, there are some stories of people who talk about, like, encounters that they've had
Yeah.
with, aliens or ships or whatever, and some of the stories seem too real to just be made up.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair. Last one. This one I'm not as well versed in, but I am very curious to get your take on it.
Mhm.
Giants in the Middle East. So the amount of context I can give is that there's a lot of folklore out
Yeah.
there about giants like living like in the mountains
Mhm.
and in the wilderness out there. And there are also several accounts of, again, from that same Tales from the Grid Square account of like
Mhm.
military people like witnessing, seeing satellite images or otherwise through scopes and like getting a scale of these things next to like what they call like regular people and
Mhm.
then being very clearly
Massive.
much larger. Um,
See, this is another one where I feel like the, like, richness of the, like, culture and story behind it could give me a little more
mhm,
credibility to believe it.
fair. Interesting.
Hmm. Now I'm
Interesting.
questioning my
So
own.
why don't they wander down into
I
society?
know, I
Yeah.
know. I'm trying to, like, what I'm rationalizing is making no sense, and I'm trying to figure out why I would be more inclined to believe some things and
Yeah.
not the others. I think a
Sometimes you just
lot
got
of
a gut
that
though.
is real in the sense of the, like, folklore,
Yeah,
spiritual, like, cultural side of it,
sure.
and whether it's, like, something that was seen in the mythology world, maybe that's where I'm saying, like, I believe it
Sure.
more, like, I think it's true in those contexts.
Hmm.
I don't know.
Okay.
I think there is weird shit out there
Sometimes
is
you
the
just get a
conclusion.
gut too.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just kind of
Mhm.
tend to naturally lean a certain way subconsciously, and
Mhm.
that's totally fair too.
Like, in some wild, wild forest in Siberia, I'm sure there's weird stuff. Like, how could there not be in just
Sure.
super remote places? Yeah.
Fair. Very fair. But anyways, I've been don't really know what I'm gonna call this episode now.
Okay.
But
I'm nervous because I have no context
it's
for what's about to
so
come.
we took a drive the other day. It is
Mhm.
Dream Cruise weekend. It is the Dream Cruise for those who are not familiar with. There's a road in Michigan called Woodward Avenue. I believe it was the first ever highway ever built,
Oh, I didn't
named
realize that.
after a judge. But this week, this Saturday in August every year, the Dream Cruise takes place. And what it is basically just a gathering of cars that drive up and down Woodward. And it sounds very silly until and you get to see,
Mhm.
in person, I'm guessing for the first time, right?
Yeah, I haven't done the dream cruise before.
Like millions of people show up from around
Mhm.
the country. People, I guess, have been bringing in trailers of cars a week in advance just to show up. And it's one of those things where it's purely just for passion.
Mhm.
Like there are events and there are vendors and, people are trying to sell money, sell things. And the large auto manufacturers are here as well with their own displays. They're making announcements. They're debuting new vehicles as well. So there's a bit of a commercial aspect for it as well. But for the most part, you drive up and down this, 2-lane road. Is it a 3-lane road?
3.
3-lane road, yeah.
3 lane.
Um, and for miles and miles and miles on both sides of this road, people are just lined. And they've been doing this all week in anticipation for this Saturday because as more people show up from out of town, excuse me, they get to see new cars,
Mhm.
people start showing up, and people just pull up chairs, they sit in the back of their trucks, they have tents, they're sleeping out of vans, and they're simply just there to watch cars go by for like a week plus,
Mhm.
all in anticipation for this one day. And it's just a pure expression of passion, basically. And I think that is just so, so cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, yes, I'm a car guy, so I've always loved, the idea of that. But I was driving through it the other day, and I was driving home from work, and everyone at work, that was just saying, "I hate having it stuck like in that traffic from the Dream Cruise."
Mhm.
And I realize I am obviously doxing myself a little bit
Yeah, you are.
location, but I don't care. I think this is important to talk about, and I'm gonna bring it to another thing in a minute here. But driving home from work, and I'm a car guy, so like, I love looking at the cars anyways. I don't mind the traffic because you have all this time just to sort of take all of this in. And I've mentioned I don't get super like, emotional about
Mhm,
things really, except for I forgot how I worded it originally, but just like huge like displays of just like shared humanity basically, and
mhm.
that is like one of the coolest ones I think. And I was sitting in traffic one day and I just had a smile on my face the
Aw,
whole way driving
yeah.
home, and like I got emotional for a bit too because there's just like there's kids, there's parents,
Mhm.
there's grandparents, like generations. People have probably been doing this since it first started,
Yeah.
who still show up, or whose family still shows up. They're still bringing the family car out. They're still doing it just for the sake of doing it
Mhm,
because they just enjoy it. And it's just so pure and it's just so cool. It's like almost like all these cars, and you saw a lot too. They're art in a
mhm,
way as well. And I mean, I kind of just wanted to get your thoughts on it as well. And obviously, it was hot and it was slow moving through the line, but it's just like, and maybe it's not something that speaks to really reaches out and touches somebody who's not like super into or
mhm,
enthusiastic or passionate about cars. But like to me, it's just one of like it's just such a cool, amazing display of people just coming together and just enjoying a thing.
mhm.
And we saw somebody out there holding a sign, doing some picketing for whatever cause it was. And it's one of those things where, like, come on, man. Like, you're
I
doing this just
know.
because you know you have a large audience, but nobody's here to partake in
Mm,
this to spread a message. Like, everyone is there just to enjoy this passion, like, with other people.
mhm.
And that's it. And I think that's so, so cool. And beyond obviously looking at all the cars, like that's my favorite part about just
Yeah,
going through and seeing that, I think is just incredible. But I want to get your
yeah.
thoughts on it
No,
as an outsider who maybe has not seen it before, and also someone who's not super into cars, maybe.
yeah, I thought it was so cool. Like, I agree with everything you just said. I think it's such a cool idea that people are willing to come a week early and to
Hmm.
literally camp out for this just to watch
Yeah.
cars go by. Like, it's such a pure, wholesome thing. And I even said to you when we were driving through it, like, because a lot of the people there were, a bit older. And of
Yeah.
course, they're like the younger, high school kids. And you can just tell it's cool because when you're driving through, you can like see those memories being made and you
Hmm.
know that this is something that like those high school kids or middle school kids whatever, this probably means so much to them. Like
Yeah.
to them that's probably so cool. Like if their parent has a cool car that they can take,
Hmm.
like that will probably stick with them for so long. And then all of the older people that were there too, I even said to you, like they've probably been coming here since the 60s. Like
Right.
you can just see so much history there and shared history and then like new generations of that happening. And I think that was really cool.
That is, yeah. I think that's so cool because, like, and because like I grew up, around that
Mhm.
too. Obviously, I spoke in, one of the I think in my very first episode talking about cars. My dad had a 1961 Cadillac, and we would drive down. We take trips
Mhm.
to make it to Woodward, not for Dream Cruise, which I learned why because the car overheats very quickly in that stop and go. Um, but I'm very familiar with the area, and I've been around just to see people on the weekends, not even Dream Cruise weekend, just hanging out in
Mhm.
groups. All the parking lots will be full of, different cars and very clearly like enthusiast cars, whether they be
Mhm.
classics or like modified cars. Um, and so it is cool just to see that it's like, oh, obviously the car community is a huge community. I never thought for one moment like I don't have like similar people who like my
Right.
thing. Like that's been I've never thought that, but it's just really cool to see it in such a large like quantity,
Mhm.
in such a large mass like that. And I'm gonna move on and make my point, I promise here. But there's a moment where, and I've struggled with, and it really is talking and thinking out loud here. I've struggled a lot because, talked a lot about, where the country is socially, politically,
Mhm.
and everything. And for a while, I still struggle with this idea. Like the flag, the US flag.
Mhm.
There's a lot of talk, and not a lot, but there is talk, and I have seen, the point trying to be made that, like, it doesn't stand for, what it used to stand for. The people in charge have kind of ruined its meaning, and it's so tough for me to fully commit to that and agree, like, yeah, fuck the flag.
Mhm.
Like, it's not all that. And this country isn't what it used to be because other people ruined it. So, like, whatever. But I can't, like, really let that go because I haven't really fully made up
Mhm.
my mind about, the whole sort of philosophy behind that, the impacts of sort of having a mindset like that, or if I really want to just give up, just fighting for,
Mhm.
making sure the flag means something even. I don't think I want to do that either. But you saw it too, where there's that giant construction crane that
Yeah.
hung that huge flag. And it was like right around that point in my drive back home where I was like, I'm getting touched right now. Like
Yeah.
I'm pretty emotional right now. And like that was just a really cool feeling to just sort of have that pull so much emotion out of me. But the point I was trying to make here was that all those cars, cars in general, that's a big they're in the spotlight as far as like um legislation
Mhm.
goes, as far as like renewable energy and the green movement and all that. And that's so and there's a lot of it's very easy to disregard somebody who doesn't want to do that because, well, we talked about this when we went about catastrophizing and
Mhm.
the climate change book that I'm reading and whatnot. It's very easy just to brush them aside as ignorant, right wing, conservative people who don't care about the world, don't care about the earth, like who cares about your cars? Obviously, as someone who's individual, I care about cars, so like I'm obviously very much on the side of preserving the gas cars. Also, touched on it briefly how eliminating gas cars is not going to solve anything, but also like you see that aspect of it now too, where it's like it's an art
Mhm.
almost like it's a whole community coming together and appreciating something, and that's like that's sort of like parks in that sense, where
Mhm.
having that space, that ability to come together as people, like, that's important for a society to have, and also like art, and maybe because you have experience, in a different country, you might be able to speak to this a little bit as well. But like, there's a lot of like a lot. I see a lot of the memes about it. I see a lot of the pictures. A lot of people complaining about sort of how a lot of the architecture and the styling of the buildings in Europe has shifted, and we see it here a lot too in cities where we lose a lot of the old, beautiful, like ornate
Mhm.
buildings, and they're being replaced with these seriously boring office buildings or apartment like towers. And I fear that with a lot of this sweeping like movement across, legislation, especially as it has with talking, take two, especially as it relates to cars, is that that exact same thing's going to happen. And you saw how unique, how diverse, how
Yeah.
incredible all those cars were out there. And with all this stuff that's going to happen, it's just going to look like a modern city
Mhm.
of just boring blandness, and all in the name of progress, all in the name of whatever. And great, cool. Maybe it does help contribute to the goal you want it to contribute to, but you do lose something in that, like, you lose that passion, that human sort of connection thing,
Mhm.
because you're not going to see like a Tesla Dream Cruise. You're not going to see,
No.
a Rivian, a Cybertruck, whatever it is,
Mhm.
Dream Cruise. They just don't elicit the same emotions. They don't have those places in our hearts like those do across so many generations that you saw out there. And so, just thinking out loud, really, I realize there's not
Mhm.
a question there,
Well,
or
there's
there's not
history
a,
there that
yeah.
isn't there with the like the newer wave
Hmm.
of things that are happening. Like
Yeah.
so much of that for people, I think, is the nostalgia
Yeah.
factor too. And a lot of those cars, like they were really done up, and
Hmm.
you can tell people put a lot of work into them. I think it's cool because it's such a point of pride
Hmm.
for people. Like to work, right, to be able to even, like, afford to buy a car, like,
Oh
buy
my
a
God.
car that you can just have fun with like that,
Yeah.
and then to put so much work into it, like, it really becomes a passion project for
Hmm.
people, and I think it's cool for some like, to have something that you're so proud of, um, and yeah, and I think that's, like, really what was coming across there is, like, people were just so excited and proud, and, like, everyone was getting excited for what the other person had, you
Yeah.
know? It was really a shared thing, and it wasn't, like, mine versus yours. It was very, like, us collectively appreciating all this stuff around us.
And there wasn't there's no, like, gatekeeping
No.
going on. You like, we saw the car today, it was like a $600 rusted out rattle
Yeah.
can, like, Lincoln Town Car or something, and there was just 3 dudes in it
Mhm.
in cowboy hats just, cruising,
Yeah.
having a good time, and I think that's just so cool.
Mhm.
Doesn't matter, as long as you're there, like, you're there, and it's just I get such a kick out of that, that
Yeah,
it's
it was cool because it wasn't like you have to have the nicest,
Mhm.
best, most expensive
Now, yes,
sports
if you
cars.
put the time
Yeah.
and the effort into, work to whether it be to buy a new car or you put the man hours into building and painting and maintaining a beautiful classic car, then
Mhm.
like you're obviously going to get the praise from
Mhm.
that. But also like you're not stopping the $600 beater from rolling
No,
in either.
yeah.
It's so cool. And everyone
Yeah.
appreciates that you made it there.
Yeah.
Everyone's happy that that
That's the
600
thing, it
car
was
is able
more
to crawl onto the
Mhm.
Woodward to take part in the Dream Cruise. Like it's
Yeah.
so cool.
Yeah, I think that is the cool part of it is, like, it really was just a community
Hmm.
thing. It wasn't like a status or a competition. It really was just, like, a very, like, pure, wholesome thing.
Yeah. No, I was very, very curious to get your thoughts
No,
as
I really
someone
liked it.
who one may not be a super
Mhm.
obviously you're looking into cars now, so you are
Mhm.
becoming more familiar with cars. You're finding out more
I
about
know
what
what
you
I
like,
like,
getting more
yeah.
particular rather than just like I want a car to move from point A to point B. You want a car you can enjoy.
Yeah.
But also somebody's never seen a Dream Cruise, I was just curious to your
Mhm.
thoughts on that. And obviously, I'm not going to explicitly draw the lines to how this relates to another one of my hobbies, but like, you know,
I
there's
can
that.
see where you're going.
Yeah, no, I won't do that though. That would be
You
too
can go there.
heavy-handed. No,
It's your podcast, you
it's
can do whatever you
I
want.
understand, but like I do that a lot,
Yeah.
and I think Dream Cruise deserve its time in the spotlight because it
Mhm.
is such a cool tradition
Mhm.
that I hope never dies because it is just pure like nothing can really corrupt it.
Mhm.
Like sure, the cops are there obviously to block off roads to help keep people safe and
Mhm.
everything, but like there is no political like thing behind it at all.
Mhm.
And if there was, it just wouldn't be tolerated.
Well, like the guy that we saw
Yeah.
with his sign, when we saw him, it almost was like before that when we were driving, I wasn't focused on reality. Like I saw
Yeah.
him and he snapped me back into reality and I was like, "Oh man, like I don't want to I was enjoying
Yeah.
just being like in the moment, like looking at these cars and honestly, I was really imagining like how long has that, like, older person been doing this for? Like, when we'd pass, like, the younger kids, just imagining, like, I remember being 16, like, getting to do something
Yeah.
like this, like, with all your little friends, right? Like, how cool that probably is for them
Oh
right
yeah.
now. So you're so in the moment, and, like, I was really just thinking about the other people that were there, and then we saw that guy, and it, like, snapped me back into, politics and all that, and I was like, "God damn it, like, what do you."
But that's like the thing, right? Like you should be able to enjoy, those pure, those
Yes.
incredible things, those moments of like shared humanity and not have to have some sort of thing, underlying
Yes.
message or thing behind it. Because again, Woodward Dream Cruise, it's not like what's the thing? There's no like
It's not really
wrongdoing being
polarizing.
committed. Yeah,
Yeah.
no one's getting harmed in the Woodward Dream Cruise,
Mhm.
right? And so there's no reason for there to be anyone trying to establish some sort of moral high ground within it or over it, really. Same with like enjoying football or
Yeah.
sports or anything. Like I can just enjoy that without having to worry about something else going on, I feel like. And I think
Mhm.
that's sort of the shared sentiment of, today anyways, is just how tired people are of that sort of messaging. And I think the reaction that we had to that dude was probably the same. I don't think
Yeah.
he probably made more enemies than he did followers or
Oh,
friends that day
yeah.
because everyone's like, "What the fuck,
I don't
man?
wanna
Like,
do this.
go home. Like, what are you
Mhm.
doing? Like, surely you'd rather be doing something else.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Probably not."
He seems pretty content.
Yeah, I just realized what I said, and I
Yep.
think
He
he was
seems
checking his purpose box
he
by
was
being
born
there.
for that moment.
Mhm.
Yep.
Mhm. That is an over socialized
Mhm.
individual.
Yeah, he had some things going on.
But yeah, I have a number of schizo sort of things I was going to ask your opinion on, the Industrial Revolution and
Ooh.
its consequences being one, but I won't do that. Um, What and so I think that's actually a good almost a good segue into a bit of, like, another question
Okay.
because I found myself as with the Maui fires, right?
Mhm.
There's and it actually kinda it ties back to, like, what we said about, cameras and things being caught by so many people now, and I'll just go into the question here, but is there a way to be informed while still being, like, happy and, like, blissful? Because I realize I said I'm just gonna let the question stay out there, but now I feel like I need to add context to it. The Maui fires being the most recent example. It happened. It's a terrible thing, and I think I brought it up yesterday as
Mhm.
well to you. But like, it took less than 24 hours for there already to be serious conspiracy theories and
Mhm.
allegations about what happened and how there's documents and how there's footage and all this stuff about the fires being set by something else and
Mhm.
real estate schemes. And then someone bring up the fact that Maui isn't an actual state, like legally. There's some other sort of handshake that happened that would recognize them as a state. And there's all this stuff floating around, all the stuff about how aid wasn't being allowed into the island, how people weren't allowed to volunteer to help people, and all this stuff. And so, like, how did we get to that point? One, but like it just sort of, I've started spiraling too at that
Mhm.
point, and it was at that moment I realized like I've done everything I could to pull away like from the news, unplug, move without a TV. I have like a Telegram channel that strictly just like reports news. But every headlines do end up finding their way.
You still
When
have
I'm at
social
work,
media.
I still have social media.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it isn't necessarily evil I've determined, so I have to be on it. But even with such a minimal exposure to that, it's so easy just to find myself spiraling throughout a day. And I was like, what the,
Mhm.
like, how is there, is it, can I really be truly informed and find, like, sort of like peace and happiness? I'm not sure if it's really, excuse me, possible.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you can be,
Yeah.
honestly, because it's yeah, well, okay, a couple of things that came up when you were talking about, like, Maui
Hmm.
specifically, like, the conspiracy theory stuff happened
So
so
fast.
fast, and honestly, like, it makes me sad because at the end of the day, like, these people are in a horrible
Yeah.
situation, like, they need help, people are dying, like, there
Well,
was
they
a
got
whole section
$700.
$700.
Yeah.
Like, there was a whole area of the island where, like, there was so much damaged phones and everything were just
Hmm.
completely cut off, so, like, people couldn't even call for help, and, like, emergency vehicles couldn't even get there, like, these people are truly trapped, and that's not where the focus is on, like, it's become who's behind this,
Yeah.
right? When it's like, okay, the upfront thing should not be, like, who's behind this, what else is going on, like, that can come second, but I think we're in a place where these terrible things happen and we almost forget that like these are real human beings because
Yeah.
we're not close to it. And so all you're seeing is and to play the complete like hypocrite here,
Hmm.
you could say the same thing about Ocean Gate and I made fun of
Yeah.
that situation
Everyone came together
endlessly.
as
That's a very
Americans.
different situation
Yeah.
at like those two things. One was kind of asking for it, obviously in Maui
Yeah.
we're not. But it is sad how like immediately we kind of forget these are humans that are suffering
Mhm.
element and we go straight to like what else is going on here. And I
Yeah.
think that social media does that to us a lot because everyone's always throwing out, you know, unwarranted or like untimely
Right.
opinions on things. And so that's something that I think will never go away just given how we share information. But yeah, I don't know how you stay informed without getting depressed. Like it's so bogged down. And especially here too, like our media is so controlled. And I'm not saying in other places it's not,
Mhm.
but there are certain places where you have less influence
Yeah.
over your media. I've experienced it and you can stay informed a lot more objectively, feel well informed, and not feel so sad about everything.
Mhm.
Um, and it was really cool to actually experience that and to see like okay this and I mean all media is biased. I'm not going to
Yeah.
pretend like this was a magical place where everything was perfect,
Sure.
but to be able to say like this is a more objective view of what's going on seemed more obtainable for staying
Yeah.
informed. But like I don't know realistically how you do that without just getting so bogged down and so sad. It kind of reminds me, I think we've talked about this before, like when people say you're not supposed to, like, complain about your partner to your family because you don't go home and tell your family, like, "Oh, my partner did this really cute or, like, sweet thing for me today," or, like, you're not calling them to be like, "Oh, listen to this nice thing they just did," but, like, you might call and be like, "I'm so, like, fucking annoyed with,
Yeah.
so and so, like, they did this, like, they're always pissing me off," or, like, you only tell them the things that, like, you wanna complain about
Right.
and vent about, but you're not following up with, like, "Okay, but we had a really great conversation after that," or, like, "They did this really nice thing for me today." And this is kind of that same situation, like, the media is gonna feed you the shit, and then they're not gonna feed you the, "Okay, but these 5 great stories about
Mhm.
shared humanity happened
Yeah.
today," right? Like, so you're only getting the bad, and it's kind of that same situation with, like, if you're only sharing the bad news about, like, your partner, like a friend or something, like, that's the image that the people close in your life will create. So you have to make sure that you're balancing it out, and, I mean, how do we do that with
Yeah.
media? Like, you can't force the media to put out positive stories, so you're only being fed negative stuff.
Right, and so I guess then to play into the spirit of that, social media, well, I do believe it is more of a detriment on society as a
Mhm,
whole. There were also good things that came out of them, I think, too. Like, for
mhm.
example, it it allowed the news to spread more quickly about what was happening and the state of things there. And it also allowed people to find and actually there's actually an account that was set up that was shared very quickly, at least throughout a lot of like the gun sort of community and the gun accounts
Mhm.
that I follow, that actually had the families impacted and QR codes to the actual families
That's
accounts. Like
incredible.
they vetted that so that you're not sending money to some huge
Yeah,
corporation who God knows how many cents off the dollar you send is actually going to find its way to the
yeah.
families. You can actually directly send money to the families, which was very cool. But I do think it is
Mhm.
more so negative. But it is important to also realize, like, yes, there are good things that happen
Yeah.
in these things too. But
That
yeah.
same thing happened with the, earthquakes a few months ago in Turkey and in
Mm,
Syria.
mhm.
There were so many organizations that, the funding wasn't all being used as it should be,
Yeah.
and fortunately, I have friends who were there, so they were able to share and say, like, "These are the organizations you should actually be donating to," and then they would ask us who have slightly, like, bigger reach in the
Right.
States, be like, "Can you please share this because the outlets that you are getting attention to are not ones that are actually being given back to, like, the Turkish and Syrian people who need the funding." So, yeah, it's a great way to share, like, this is where the money should actually go to or yeah.
And the sort of the direction I wanted to really go with this whole Maui thing and just being informed and finding, peace, happiness, whatever it
Mhm,
is, in just in the whole context of it all is that how did we get here in regards to whenever there's a disaster, whenever something crazy happens, like why is there an immediate desire to find, a maybe
mhm,
conspiracy theory is the wrong word for it, but like an alternative theory that says like this is what happened. So
yeah,
Maui obviously being the most recent example, a forest fire is not it was not acceptable to many
mhm,
as, an explanation as to what happened and why it happened. And we're looking into a lot of the real estate that may or may not have been impacted by it, who owns said
mhm.
real estate. And you can point to any other disaster as such, and a lot of this stuff happens like immediately. So I'll leave it up there. How do you think we got there? And what do you think, like, why do you think we do that?
I don't know, but, I mean, it happens all the time, and I do think it is a bit sad and, like,
Hmm.
not to be naive and say, like, if something happens, you should just take it on face value and say,
Hmm.
like, that's the reason why it happened, but it is a little sad that, like, that is the first place that we go to, and honestly, I think we're so disassociated from reality. We're so as much as social media we were just talking about this, like, as much as social media makes you think you're connected to other people, I think we are more disconnected now than we ever have been. Like, people can't have face to face, like, in person
Yep.
conversations. I would rather drive like out of my way to you to have a conversation that I think is important than just be like over the phone. I don't know. I think we've just lost so much of that
Yeah.
actual human connection. I think that's where a lot of it comes from because you are losing that bit of, like, these are real people who are struggling through something, and we jump immediately into what's the conspiracy behind it, like, what
Mhm.
else is going on, and it's almost like, "Well, fuck those people. I can use this now to, like, come up with some bigger story." I don't know. I don't know really how we got here.
I think, yeah, I think social media has turned our brains to
Mhm,
smooth orbs for the most part. Um, I also do think, and I never miss an opportunity to pour on the hate for a
mhm,
certain organization here. Um, but with the internet and with a lot of things coming out recently about how involved our government was in really terrible things historically, I think it also reflects a massive growing amount of skepticism among the population in that whenever something terrible happens, we immediately start, or we're starting now, or maybe a corner of the
mhm,
internet is now starting to look directly to, people maybe not directly involved in government or who are very closely involved with government into being associated with it based on prior histories. So, like, we've all but basically gotten the confirmation from the CIA that, like, the CIA was involved in assassinating a former president, which is crazy.
mhm.
We also have a letter from the FBI that was sent to Martin Luther King Jr., basically telling him to kill himself before, again, basically them all but saying that they contributed to killing him as well. And so, like, I think with all of that sort of coming out recently and being spread through the internet, I think there is a lot, and I think it's good in sort of like a mindset way, maybe
Yeah.
not.
I think you have to be careful with it.
There's a slippery
You can
slope
get
in
carried
how it's
away.
applied and how it manifests, but I do think that skepticism is very important to
Yeah.
have, so you don't blindly just trust something and allow it go unchecked. Um, but I think maybe it's not all of it, but part of, the reason why so many people do that is sort of stemming from that though, like
Mhm.
now.
I agree with you. I mean, I think there's very little trust,
Hmm.
and, yeah, I think that's probably where a lot of it comes from.
And again, made a joke earlier about it, but like, listen, $700 to a couple of households.
Yeah.
And it's not a couple, a lot of households were destroyed in the fires, but like how much money did you get in a stimulus check during COVID?
Yeah.
I got more money in COVID stimulus checks than these
Mhm.
people did for their
For
entire
losing
life, for
everything.
losing everything, and then they're
Yeah.
gonna get one $700 check. Like,
Mhm.
it does kind of make you wonder. Like, I'd be ready to burn it down
I
too at that
know.
point.
I'd
I'd
be
be like, "Are you
angry.
fucking kidding me?"
Yeah.
And then you go in front of Congress the next day and ask for another 40 billion or 40
Mhm.
million to send to Ukraine. Like, what the fuck are we doing?
Yeah. And it as sad as consuming all of this media is, like, I think you have to,
There it is. And
that's the
that's what I was
thing.
trying to get
You
to,
have
right?
to, because we even I think in the last time we did an episode, we were talking about, like, you can be ignorant to issues, right? Like, it would be a lot easier to just be like, "I'm not involved, like, I don't watch the news, I don't whatever," you know? And I'm not saying, like, be obsessed with it and, like, know everything that's going on, but, like, you do have to stay involved and be aware of what's going on in the world, and
And I
there's no way around it.
and here's the thing, your level, and I've sort of worked out, it's not really like an equation, but
Mhm,
sort of a gauge of how informed you have to be, like the balance you need to sort of find to be happy is however much you need to play within, the bounds of, society, the rules, or whatever determines, or how socialized you want to be, if we're going to use sort of spicy terms, will determine
mhm,
how informed you have to be. So I would not consider myself to be a very involved member of local or state or federal government. I care very little about government affairs. I pay taxes, but I really do not wish to contribute or know anything about anything regarding the government. So I have sort of pushed as much as I can,
mhm,
except for what I do related to this, as far as information and news goes, away from me, except for a lot with the gun thing. So yes, I get a lot of news about that, but that's because I need that to sort of make it by in the lifestyle that I want to make it by in. So like I have made the decision so that I need to let this in to do what I want to do in life. If I wanted to just unplug, stop paying taxes, stop doing anything, just move out into the woods and just homestead and, do that thing, I don't need to be informed.
Mhm.
I don't have to have news at that point unless it's to see if the ATF is coming, the IRS is coming
Mhm.
now to my homestead. That's it. And so I think the level in which you need is completely dependent on, you have to do some self-reflecting and realize like, okay, I want to stay involved in this news, whether it be for my job or I need to just in order to make sure I am not blindsided by
Mhm.
society at some point. And if you decide to go more than what you need, I think it's just going to contribute more to your spiraling.
Mhm.
And if you go less, I haven't really worked out what necessarily really happens, what the downside of that would be. But I think it's sort of like how plugged in and how, socialized you are within,
Mhm.
whatever society you are in sort of determines how informed you need to be as it relates to like your success and sort
Mhm.
of happiness in whatever sort of box you built for yourself.
Yeah, I think going less, that tends to lead I feel like that's where a lack of, like, empathy and awareness for other
Mm,
human just, like, conditions starts to come into play, right? And not to say that, like, if you consume less, you're gonna become, like, a more selfish person, but I think, like, if you consume less, sometimes it really does become more about yourself, right? Like,
interesting.
you're just not staying as aware.
But what if
And I'm
that
only saying
person who
that
consumes less still like associates and hangs out with and has many friends
Mhm.
and they're not like a hermit, they're not living by
Mhm.
themselves just unplugged, but like I feel like you'd still be able to have that sort of empathy
No,
and
for sure, and I'm not saying, like, that person is a bad person for consuming less, but I think when your whole world is just you and your problems,
hmm,
then some of that empathy and awareness for other people
agreed.
gets lost.
But if you have
And
a
I'm
community
honestly
too, like
saying that,
you're
like, slightly from experience. Like, I feel like in times when I'm consuming less and I get so wrapped up in my own things that I have going on, and I'm like, I can't devote this time to, like, care about other things and
mhm,
to consume, what's going on. I feel like that's when I become like a version of myself that I don't really
sure.
respect. Like, not that I will lose like the empathy and awareness, but I feel like that's when I become almost more selfish. And then I'll use that excuse of like, I just have too much going on right now. And yeah, sometimes that's valid and like pull back if you need to. But I don't know. I just think we have, for whatever reason, somewhat of a responsibility to like stay just generally aware of things. And honestly,
So
I'm saying this in, like, the last few months specifically.
yeah,
Like, I've had just a lot going on in my personal life, and I think I've become a bit more selfish. And these last few weeks, I kind of had a wake up call, and I was like, I don't really love the person that I have been. And I think it's because I lost a lot of that. Like, I just got so consumed in my own problems, and I almost stopped paying attention to like what other people had going on.
yeah. Let me I'm not trying to, you know, tell you you're wrong in that, but let me provide this. Let's say you consume less media,
Hmm.
but you still obviously you have family, you have friends, you have like a community, if you will. And if so long as you're not, completely shut off to those people, you would be in tune, with their problems.
Hmm.
You'd be empathetic with their problems. And maybe by consuming less media, you have more time, more emotional energy because you haven't invested it in watching so much crazy headlines and news. You're able maybe to more so impact and help out in, your immediate community where you
Hmm.
actually would be of service where you would be of benefit where so I watch the news and I really can't impact or help or change most of the things that happen. Yes, with Maui I can donate, that's really about it.
Hmm.
But I can actually make impacts, more locally and within, my immediate sort of circle, rather than watching the news and sort of playing on what we just talked about, social media, how we are more isolated than ever while feeling more connected. The news, I think, does the same thing
Hmm.
where we feel like we're connected, but we're not able to do anything about it. And maybe by spending so much time and energy focusing and sort of digesting all of that media, we are more blind to what's happening in our own backyards within our immediate community.
Yeah, and that's almost more what I was referencing to. Like, I
Okay.
don't necessarily mean like get more involved like in the news. Like,
Yeah,
I don't watch news
sure.
channels. I don't really think they are valuable for most people because
Yeah,
they're so biased.
agreed.
I mean, like even in the local and like in your, community and in your close spheres. Like
Sure.
when I start to get less involved in those senses is when I feel like a change in the type of person that I would like to
Mm,
be,
okay.
And I think you can be a person who's really involved in a group or a community, but you're not actively making an attempt to
Yeah,
be involved and like be open and aware of what's going on and what other people are feeling.
sure.
And again, this is like separate from the news now because you're right. Like you can't keep up to date with every tragedy that's going on in the world and do something about all of them. But like I think there's a difference between it's like active and passive participation,
Mhm.
right? And it's, staying actively participating in whatever your, passion falls into, whether that is on like a bigger scale and like you really like tackling these big
Yep,
issues and staying up to date in that sense, or like just staying involved on, a smaller sense with like your community and stuff like that.
yeah,
But it's hard. How do you
yeah,
you do have to also take a step back and like you can't consume everything and yeah, I don't know. I don't have a good balance.
and I think a lot of it comes down to realizing what you can and what you cannot control and impact
Yeah.
should also be and should probably be the main contributor into how much and what kind of media you consume.
Mhm.
Because consuming and viewing a lot of things that are never going to find its way to your doorstep, that you are never going to have an impact on, or you're never going to be able to, really change or, touch, probably doesn't do you much good.
Mhm.
Yes. And that comes like, with a huge asterisk I get because like being informed and well rounded is important as well. But you shouldn't be like living in it if you're not really gonna do anything with that. Like I think and obviously if you're gonna watch it to be informed, great. If you're gonna watch it just to kill time and to
Yeah.
because you need it just to feel like you're doing something, like it just has to be on in the background, that's
Mhm.
probably not all that good for you. I think is
I agree. Not to interrupt you, but I agree, and I think that's a huge issue with almost
mhm,
being too involved is like that need for constant stimulation and
yeah,
constantly feeling
like
like,
scrolling on social
yeah,
media.
yeah, and like
Yeah.
needing to feel like I'm plugged into every single issue and I know everything that's going on. Like that's not great
No, you
either.
gotta you gotta focus on,
Yeah.
on your own house,
Mhm.
basically, your own community. And in that sense, you are basically turning off social media and
Mhm.
then making real connection at that point. So I think it's gonna be a constant like guess and check.
Yeah.
There's really no one thing, no one size fits all sort of solution for that. But it's something seriously I think that we need to sort of internally take a look at and take a real sort of inventory of and be like, how much am I consuming? What am I
Mhm.
consuming? Should I be consuming this? And like, what am I doing for my own community internally?
Yeah. And it's so hard, I think, to remember too that like everyone will have their own things that they want to
Hmm.
consume, that they
That's
want to
just
be
people.
passionate about.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just people. But when it's something that you're really passionate about, or like you think that people should be aware of and they're not, like, I think it's hard to not then get angry and
Mhm.
want to react and be like, you need to care
And
about
that's like
this.
the
And
Maui thing, right?
yeah,
And I
yeah.
think, like you said first, like those are real people. The first focus should be to help the
Hmm.
people. Like, whether it was just a wildfire, whether it was maybe say the president hit a button and a satellite shot a laser down and started the fires, which I do believe might have been an actual theory. Like, regardless of whatever it was that happened, like those people like were in the ocean as they watched their home burned. Like,
Yeah, it's
those are real people.
horrible.
Like, the first goal and the priority is to help the people.
Hmm.
Then go find the boogeyman
Yeah,
or confirm that it was a wildfire and deal with that after. But like, it is help the people
yeah. Unless you need that
first.
information right
That's the
now
priority.
because that's the only way you can put out these fires,
Right.
then go for it. If not,
But that's
Pause.
not, and going back to social media and the news thing and why those aren't great things, that's a very slow, gradual headline that doesn't change much over
Mhm.
time, Fire is 80% contained,
Yeah.
fire is 85% contained, versus the manhunt for the
I
dude or the
know.
country that started the fires, or the real estate scheme that started the fires is a much more attractive,
Mhm.
it's going to gain much more attention on social media. Sort of tells you that media in general is it's not structured in a virtuous way to
No,
keep
it's
you
not. It's for
informed,
money.
and so that should be a serious factor as you look inside yourself and really take an inventory of how much you consume and what you consume, and
Mhm. And you
that's
made a
not
good
good.
point earlier about, like, you have to recognize what's out of your control.
Yeah.
Like, while I do think it's great to
I'm not gonna be able to put out the fires. I can Venmo
No,
if I wanna
yeah,
Venmo, and
yeah,
that's your choice to, if that's how you're gonna contribute, then great, cool, awesome, do that. But don't just sit there and
yeah. You have to be able to find a way to consume without, like, letting it consume
mhm.
you, you can't just be
But we're not smart enough to do that on
it's
social media,
hard.
nobody can do
Yeah,
that.
it's hard, but,
Yeah,
like, getting anxious over these things that you can't control
yeah,
is it's easier said than done, but, um, I think that's something else too that people like, over-consuming really doesn't help with.
yeah. Go to
People
Dream
really
Cruise.
live
Go
in their
for a ride, go
heads.
for a car
Yeah,
ride, yeah, you know?
yeah.
But, yeah, I know it's getting late here again. Over an hour, so this is gonna be a short one. I just wanna get your thoughts on the Dream Cruise,
A
and
short
here we are.
a short one
Yeah,
in our standards where we do 3-hour episodes.
I know, we gotta get ready to hit the town.
Yep. What oh my gosh.
We're fine. We're not gonna have, guests here before. I
You're
think
fine.
something changed
Getting
in the
ready
plans,
process is
so,
longer for me.
yeah, we're good. We're change the plans. We're not people aren't stopping here before, so we're fine.
Anyways,
Yeah. So, instead of maybe
that
watching
was
the
good.
news and spiraling out, go for a car ride,
Mhm.
go for a walk, we talked about today
Oh my
too.
god. There is nothing that I feel like a walk doesn't
Skip the car maybe if,
yeah,
the grocery store is, like, a mile or less away, and just go for a walk. Go
walk.
walk to the coffee shop, talk to real people,
The best thing I think I've ever done for my, like, mental state of mind is just walking
yeah.
more. And I'm trying a lot lately to walk without like, I'm so in the habit of I'll go for a walk and I'll put my headphones in and listen to
Mm,
something, right? Like, go for a walk, no headphones. Like, just, I don't know, kinda take in
just raw dog
what's just
life.
raw dog life.
It's fair. Well, we're gonna try to get outside tomorrow. I
Yeah,
text the the father figure and asked if we can go shooting tomorrow.
okay.
We're in another video of you shooting because
Yeah.
Instagram decided to not like the
Oh,
video I
really?
put up of you shooting. Yeah,
Well, I'll be better this
I
time
had to
too, so
remove it because my account couldn't be
Really?
shared with non-followers. Yeah, because of it.
Wow.
They don't like empowered women.
Apparently not.
They don't like women
I'm
who are gonna
offended.
defend themselves against men who are trying to take advantage of them, apparently. Fuck you, Instagram.
Damn.
Yeah, Instagram's such a joke. That I was talking to another guy. I want to get his name because he actually lent me some really good advice. I understand I'm not gonna do a huge service to him here, but Dark Hearts Crew is the account name. I want to make sure I get what he does here. Like an illustrator, for the most part, has reposted other sort of members in the community's work, but Illustrator mostly lately put on a new shirt design, it looks like, but he recently shared a image of the same sort of message he got. I'm gonna show you the exact picture that they nailed him on
Mhm.
for nudity, apparently.
For
And
nudity.
I want you to keep in mind, if you
Okay.
go through your Discover page,
Mhm.
you see girls in bathing suits. You see,
I mean,
for the most
guys
part,
wearing
girls also wearing like nothing
Mhm.
to almost basically, and I don't follow them, yet there they are in my Discover page, essentially. So how are they able to get away with that? They hit
Mhm.
him for this with nudity.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, how big of a joke is that?
Yeah.
Like, it's clear. First of all, clearly wearing clothes,
Yeah.
like more clothes than most, I would say.
That's ridiculous.
Hit him with that, and I was like, dude, that first of all, that's horse shit. And then I sort of asked for his advice on how he handles a lot of
Oh, yeah.
sort of shadow banning sort of procedures and flagging posts like that that prohibit his account from being shared.
Mhm.
And he just says he deletes them. He bites the bullet. And that's tough
Oh,
because I don't have a huge following as well. And so I have to make the decision, like, do I bow to that
yeah.
to continue getting exposure? And for the moment, I am, just because I haven't reached that size to not care about that. And that's a very hard bullet to bite for me to sort of swallow my pride and my ego and do that. But I have already acknowledged the fact that Instagram and YouTube are just essential evils
Mhm.
that I have to tolerate in order to continue, I think, talking about good things and important things. So I swallowed the pride, I deleted it. I have appealed a few, knowing damn well that I'm never going to be able to speak to a real person or get a real shot and a true day in court with these asshats, but it is what it is. I just will continue chugging along. It's a Sisyphus parable, right?
Yeah.
I am just rolling my rock up the hill by fighting
Yeah.
with these idiots. So, but yeah, so we're gonna have to try to get another video that
Yeah.
for them to
Do what you
ban
can.
and put it up you on there tomorrow. So we'll do that.
Also, apologies for just being on my phone for like 5 minutes. I was trying to find this quote that I had saved because it reminded me a lot of what you've been talking about of like not letting things
Mm,
control you. It's something like if it is I'm not gonna even
yeah.
do it because I won't do it any justice. It's basically about like not letting things you can't control like take up space in your
Okay.
mind. Yeah. Anyways, um, that is not nudity at all, and that's ridiculous that they banned that video.
Yeah.
What about the content you had posted similar to that
They
that
hit
we
it with
did?
that too.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah. They
She had to
did.
get rid of that too?
Yep. I peeled it. They didn't care.
I actually have an idea kind of like that we can talk about.
Cool. Let's chat
Nice.
about it.
Hmm.
But cool. Thank you for joining
Yep.
the
Thanks for
show
having
again.
me.
We'll have you back
This
soon, I
was fun.
think.
I had no idea
I
the
don't know where I was going to go with it.
topic.
I want to
Yeah.
talk about Dream Cruise for maybe 5 minutes
Hmm.
and then just see where it went. And then it kind of just went there.
No, it's fun.
But cool. I'm glad you stuck around for another hour, 15-minute video. Cool.
Thanks for
We'll have
having
you
me.
back on again soon.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.